NMIMS Hyderabad welcomes you to Conclave. Good evening to Raghavendra sir, Chief Executive Officer and Founder HNB Consulting, Mr. Sairam Vedam sir, Global Head of Marketing at Signity Technologies Limited, Mr. Ramachandra Iyer sir, Senior Vice President Head Strategic Alliance and Innovations at eHub, our esteemed Director Dr. Pruthvi Yadav sir, our respected faculty members and my fellow classmates. Analytics is a discovery, interpretation and communication of meaningful patterns in data. Especially valuable in areas rich with recorded information, analytics relies on simultaneous applications of statistics, computer programming and operation research to quantify performance. Analytics often favors data visualization to communicate insights. The following are the topics which will be discussed during the conclave by the panelists: big data analytics, marketing analytics, social media analytics, predictive and behavioral analytics for campaign management and outreach, trend, scope and forms of analytics, retail and healthcare analytics, how analytics is shaping the world, analytics-driven sales model. Now I would request our program chair, Dr. Karunakar sir, to give okay to Mr. Raghavendra sir. Again, I would like to request Karunakar sir to hand over bouquet to Sairam sir. I would now request Swami sir to hand over bouquet to Rama Iyer sir.
Very good evening to one and all. I would now request our esteemed Director Sir, Dr. Pruthvi Yadav Sir, to address the gathering and enlighten them about analytics. Thank you.
Mr. Raghav, Mr. Sairam and Mr. Ram. First of all, welcome to NMIMS Hyderabad. We are really delighted to see you all here in the campus, accepting our invitation on this occasion and to speak and to tell us about the analytics. Everybody talks about analytics. And the way the business schools, industry, corporates, and now the government is coming forward and using the concept of analytics in every aspect. So first of all, I would like to thank this new club and for taking the hard work to make this day to happen. It's a very difficult process. Sorry. It's a very difficult process. Requires a lot of effort to put forward the three speakers from three different areas at one platform. So let's give a big clap to this. And since the analytics is going to be the future talk for all aspects, either for the business or for the industry or for the academics or for the research. Now I will take you some time back and try to give you the background how the analytics has been shaped from the traditional statistical analysis to this particular day when we talk about the big data and the big data analytics. I recall way back in 2000 at IIM Indore, we were the first one to introduce the concept of data mining and the business analytics in the academic curricula. And the first program we conducted in 2000 year and started offering the specialization in data mining. The first MDP program we floated in 2001, and believe me, when we started exploring the source persons for the MDP program, we talked to Microsoft, we talked to IBM, we talked to SPSS, we talked to SAS. But that time, the source persons were not available to deliver the kind of the MDP we had floated. That was the practical based, the management development program. So we started from that point, and now this specialization, this discipline has become the everybody's talk. So let me give you some background and also the understanding, since we all have still confusions, doubts, that in what way the analytics is different than simple statistical analysis. Is it not? We all go through the traditional quantitative analysis, statistical analysis, and then now switching to the analytics. We are all familiar with those 4 steps of hypothesis testing, since the entire decision was to be placed based on the hypothesis testing. Those 4 steps, what do we call it? The H tag. Is it not? H tag. What was the H? Hypothesis. What was the T? Test. What was A? Analyze. and what was being applied to business. Okay. So here, what is the starting point? It is the hypothesis, and then selecting the test. Now once we move to analytics, the difference lies that the business problem is available, and then there is no fixed test to be applied. You have to start searching the solution for that business problem. Okay. So this is the shift. In statistical analysis, you have the problem. Based on that problem, formulate the hypothesis, and at the time of formulating the hypothesis, you decide that which test is to be applied. Once that is done, then you proceed for the data, you proceed for the samples, and do the analysis process, and then the inference. In the analytics situation, data is already available. That is the first requirement. Data is already available. So that's the first shift we had seen. In the statistical analysis, first we decide the statistical test. Then we go for data collection. Here,
we have the data.
in the second situation, data is already available. With that data availability, we have the business problem. How to solve that business problem? There are abundance of techniques available. So how to use the best possible technique in that particular situation to solve that business problem, that is the analytics. So there was shift in the approach. That was the first major difference was identified, and that was the popularized. Now in that particular process, there were a lot of developments of having the techniques. First we had the statistical techniques, then we had machine learning techniques, then we had the neural networks, genetic algorithms, and now we have the artificial intelligence. Okay? So we are seeing the development of the techniques in this particular area. More techniques, more developments, the situation becomes more complex, more complicated. Earlier we had only 15 techniques, and out of the 15, the selection was to be made. Now we have hundreds. So out of the 100, which one is going to provide the best possible solution of that problem? That is the core competency. Now again look back and see the abundance of data. Prior to 2005, prior to 2007, the data availability was the issue. And we used to have the data in thousands, in 10,000s. The lakhs of the data, millions of the data were unheard prior to 2005. When we introduced the data mining in 2000, we used to download databases from the data mining competitions for practice. And that time, our laptops used to take 10 hours to run those algorithms. At least 10 hours to run the algorithms. Since those laptops were not so powerful to tackle the 10 lakhs data, 1 lakhs data, and also the algorithms, these techniques were not so powerful to tackle that high level of the data. So that was one situation. Now we have the abundance of the data. We are reading almost every day that every 2 years the world data is being doubled. That is the kind of the situation we have. And now you can realize, for solving a business problem, you have now the millions of the data and sometimes the billion of the data available. Having social media, having online, and having so much of the data captured through every click of your mouse. You look for a problem, there would be data available. So situation becomes now more complex. Now situation is more complex in the sense that you have millions of data and you have more complex techniques available. So how to choose which technique, how to use those techniques to solve the problem, and how to play with that big data concept. That itself requires a lot of the mindset, shifting of the mindset. Since we are still habitual of seeing the MS Excel data, something like 200, 300 in that particular sheet. But the moment we see that there are 10 lakhs data point, okay, it becomes very difficult for us to conceptualize the understanding of that situation. So very, very complex situation. And now there is no problem for the data. Earlier, everybody used to struggle for collecting the data. They used to prepare the questionnaire, go to the market, go to the clients, distributing the questionnaire, and a whole lot of effort used to be done for selecting the sample. Isn't it? Almost a lot of effort used to be done that how to select the best possible sample in that particular situation. Now, in the big data analytics situation, data is already available. No need for going to any sampling process. That is another big shift in the approach. So just last week I was attending the Global Time Summit in Delhi, and the kind of the sensors and the kind of the Internet of the Things devices are being manufactured and are being used in different sectors. You will be amazed to see. In the construction sector, where the wastage used to be much more, around 20 to 25% wastage is normal. Now through the sensors and the IoT devices, these construction companies are trying to lower these wastage from 25% to 10% to 12%. Now, how to do that? Just realize every sensor you have in your equipment generates data. Every activity it is done, it generates data, and it is all stored. So every activity has to be optimized in a manner that wastage is minimum. Now you combine 100 activities and produce overall outcome in a manner that the overall loss, overall the wastage is around 10 to 12%. How complex it is. That situation is coming out. I have already spoken last week, your finance club, the Conclave, the demonetization process. If we look as a management professional, whole lot of opportunities are available to study. Data has been already collected. Every bank was mandated to capture data through video, through sensors. Now, how many transactions are being taken place every day? That is all being captured. From those transactions, how to find which transaction was fraudulent, which transaction was not legal transaction. Big task. That is one example. The healthcare, the kind of the devices are being developed that every bit of record to be captured. Either it is OT, whether it is operations, whether it is consulting, whether it is prescriptions. Now, having said so much of the records, so much of the data, preserving those data and then providing the best possible medical aid to patients, that's again beyond our expectation. So this kind of the situation we have, and this kind of the scenario we are going to have. In this kind of the scenario, I am delighted to have these three experts. They are from three different domains. They would talk from their domain and also the general aspects on the analytics terminologies. I know that these topics are very wide topics. The kind of the topics they have set, it's a very wide topics. How far you would be able to cover, how far you would be able to digest, and how far we would be able to deliver, that's a big challenge. But yes, we would try to put it as much as possible from our side, but also responsibility would be on you to explore, to probe, and to ask as much as questions, since this is an area which has a lot of potential almost in every sector and in every discipline. I'll once more welcome all of you here at NMIMS and expect that you will all get the maximum benefit through this conclave. This is the wonderful effort by this club, and I would expect that they will keep on doing these activities to make it this concept more familiar to all of you. It's not important whether you are specializing in this particular area or not, but it's important wherever you would be working, you would be dealing with this particular concept. So it's equally important for all of us to orient ourselves in this particular area and to understand that how this area works. So thank you very much.
I would now like to introduce Mr. Raghavendra Hunasgi, who would be the moderator for today's evening. So, Mr. Raghavendra is a co-founder and he's a founder and CEO at H&B Consulting. He's a marketing, branding and strategy executive with over 15 years of experience, including general management of mid to large-sized organizations, corporate development, product development, business operations and strategy. In addition to all this, Raghavendra sir is also an advisor at the UN, and he is really passionate about marketing and branding, and I'm sure he could give us a lot of insight into all these subjects, coupled with the power of analytics. So welcome sir, and I request you to kindly take over the session.
So, thank you so much for having all of us here. I'll quickly introduce Sairam and Rama here, tell a little bit about what. Okay, yeah. So thank you so much for having us here. It's a privilege and an honor to speak in any of these educational institutions. We kind of like doing it, but I mean, we don't find too much of time, but whenever we get a chance, we do it. So I will have the honor of introducing both the other panelists. We have Sairam Vedam. Sairam Vedam, I know him for more than a decade. He's an industry thought leader. He's a marketeer by heart, technologist. One of the other things that I want to mention here is he is specialized in analytics and statistics during his post-graduation days. He's a gold medalist who consistently scored 150 on 150 all the years. He is also a keynote speaker in many of the events. He is currently managing the world's second largest independent software testing services company, which is Signity, as the head of marketing there. Welcome, Sai. And we have Rama Iyer. So I have a very favorite quote to introduce him. He is the blue-eyed boy of Indian startup ecosystem. If you have heard of any successful startup, any startup that found a good exit, you will know that Rama Iyer is connected. He spent more than 10 years in the US. He has been instrumental in bringing many large brands like Polycom come to India and set up their center. He has helped many multi-billion-dollar captives. He has only dealt with billions. It's only now that he is helping startups like us, find their presence in India and in the Hyderabad state of Telangana. He does all things and everything with innovation, with startup, with exit, with funding, with VC. So any of you guys have a startup idea, he's the go-to guy. So that's a quick introduction about the panelists. So the way we want to do it is we want to keep it very, very interactive. We don't want to, kind of talk about what we know. We would rather keep it interactive in wanting to talk about what you guys want to hear. So we will first quickly talk about analytics in terms of areas of applicability on what we do, and then we will kind of open the floor for the questions. You can come up with any questions you have, and we'll be happy to answer, right? So I would first request Sai to tell us a little bit about, from marketeer standpoint, what does analytics mean to him, and what are the trends, how is it growing, stuff like that.
Hello, is this audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first let me thank this whole initiative from NMIMS. I think it's been a privilege for all of us to be here. Whenever we come to academic institutions, the first feeling is we become younger and nostalgic, right? And then I must say, it was a very inspiring opening notes from you, sir. It also reminded the fact that I studied statistics in my undergraduate. So there's some disclaimers because I represent a listed organization. So I did statistics in my graduation, not at post-graduation, and yeah, I think the rest of the thing was reasonably true. So having said that, my privilege to have Raghav there and Rama next to me. I'm more of an technologist who happened to be a marketeer in the latter half of my career, if that was true by itself. So what I'm going to share is very, very practical things that I've probably seen and experienced where analytics has its touch points, okay? So I'm going to learn from all of you in that process. So before I do that, just a couple of, how many of you know Nate Silver? There's a person called Nate Silver in the United States.
Have you heard of him, read about him?
Okay. All right. So this, how many of you followed the recent US elections? Okay. If there was one biggest use case that could also prove analytics can go wrong also, it was the recent election, right? So it is not that analytics will always be, so the point I'm trying to drill down is analytics is to help you decide better, but it is the human brain which will be far superior to what a machine would produce. That's my take on that stuff. Having said that, the biggest use case if I have to apply predictive analytics would be which ATM is going to give you the next 500 notes. I think we could have done that much better considering all the elite institutions that India has, starting from the Indian Statistical Institute to so on and so forth. I think there could have been a better way to handle the current cash crisis, I would say. I'm not saying, I'm not making any statement on whether it is demonetization is right or not. I think that could have been a very, very, very interesting use case still, I would say, for an academic per se, in terms of a case study or something like that. Now, let me start talking about what I do. So currently I represent a quality engineering company. Just for all of your information, software testing is a very, very, very exciting field from a predictive analytics standpoint. So sir was talking about 2000. I think while roughly about the same time period, I used to work for a very large Indian IT outsourcing company who used to work for the world's largest, still the largest networking giant. There was an exercise where in those days, I think it was close to probably 200 to 300 GB of data of defects that were analyzed on a large operating system, and there were models built to kind of find out what could be the next biggest software defect that can come in my data plane. Is that a good enough example of what analysis could do? Yes, it is. So predictive analytics is one field which for me comprehends the basic human nature of being cognitive, being intrinsic, applies all those statistical models that we were speaking about, and excites all of us, because as humans we become very, very passionate when someone predicts something, right? So that is predictive analytics for me. I don't think today there is any field that is either immune or can stay away from being predictive. So it is for us, the future chief data officers that I say. I was just reading something from Gartner which says from 2017, 82% of compliance-driven enterprises will go for a chief data officer role. So data is going to be an asset that is going to come into the balance sheets of the organizations. So predictive analytics or overall analytics is going to make all of that true. And today, how many of you know Kaggle? Okay. So Kaggle, okay. So with the amount of open source, with the amount of data that is available probably to compute, to leverage and reproduce, you don't need ready-made data sets that you will have to manufacture. It's all out there. last but not the least, the biggest data market for me is India. So I want all of you to look at a billion problems that we have, apply analytics and solve them very intelligently. We'll talk about the rest of the experiences. I hope that made some sense. Thank you. Right.
So my next question is to Rama. So can you touch upon a little bit on analytics scope? Where do you see startups? How do you see innovation in analytics? What are some of the big challenges that you saw analytics can address?
Everyone can hear?
Yes.
Hi. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks Pruthvi for having all of us. And as Raghav mentioned, let's keep it very interactive. I don't want this to be a monologue. Ask questions. I think that's a preferred format. Raghav can ask, you guys can ask. I think for me, rather than I talking about what data analytics that I know, I would rather think of what you guys are thinking in the back benches, that why am I here? Why am I hearing to these guys and what does all this mean to me, right? So I'll kind of, everything that I answer will be on those lines. And this reminds me of all the backbenching days that I have been sitting and I'm like, why am I here, right? Wasting time. So I want to ensure that between three of us will give you at least few data points to take back home and which will stay with you all to make this evening meaningful for you all. Quick couple of points from my end would be that data and all things data analytics is the next big wave, if not already. In terms of job opportunities, in terms of career road mapping, I think it has a phenomenal amount of opportunities and flow. And any of you guys are thinking of it as serious avenue to kind of launch yourself for the next 20-30 years, I think you all are in good stead. And obviously there are 100 sub-segments and verticals that will get carved out in that whole umbrella. But I think it is pretty good. That will be my opening stance to this crowd here.
I just want to give one. So I'm very sure with the Lilians we idolize NRN, right? Narayan Murthy. I think somewhere I read there's a famous statement that he made. We all pray to God and rest we trust in the data. So that's what it is, right?
So I will talk a little bit about social media analytics and what marketing analytics, why is it important and stuff like that. Rama said will not take a lot of time. So what we do is we serve brands like Harley Davidson, Starbucks, Nike, Adidas. So these are some of our customers we serve. Laguna, Fortune 100 companies as our customers. Right. So what is the challenge that they have? Today in Hyderabad, I'm sure most of you know there is a Harley Davidson showroom in Conclave. If they want to kind of target the young audience, the audience who will buy their bike, they should have a very, very niche targeted focus. So what social media analytics does is, they kind of, we have built tools and frameworks which kind of analyzes, does the person fall under all of these criteria? Is he from a socio-economic background where he can afford a 25 like bike, right? Is he from so-and-so age group? Is he passionate about biking? Is he part of any of these bikers club, right? So if the answer to all of this is yes, then I'll show my ad to you, right? And then if I show my ad to 200 people, at least 100 of them are sure to click on it, 50 of them are sure to read about it, and 10 of them are sure to buy about it, right? So what used to happen traditionally is it was all context sensitive ads. I'm sure if we were browsing Gmail probably 4 or 5 years ago, you will see when you are typing a mail or reading a mail, if the mail says diabetes, you will see all the diabetic ads, right? If it says restaurant, you will see all the restaurant ads. So that was all context sensitive. Now, the next gen thing on analytics is all about social listening and how do you cater to the audience with an ad that will make sense, and the buying cycle is much higher. The whole sales cycle is accelerated. So that is what we kind of do. We analyze sentiments, we analyze target audience, and then cater to them in terms of ads or posts or messaging. Right? So that's a little bit about what we do. We can now open the floor for questions. Anything that you want to know on analytics, we'll be happy to answer.
Sure. So there's we keep hearing these words very often. So, sir, what would be a difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence? So, it's something that is very different conceptually, but what is exactly the essence of it? That is something that we all get confused about very often. So, if you would like.
Rama Sai.
So, so let's kind of look at it differently, right? Rather than kind of just giving an answer, and then let me also add neural networks to that whole spread of complexity. So essentially, and I think if we kind of talked about some aspects of it in quite some details. This is how we should look at it. Don't read into too much of the terminology and what it means. There's going to be multiple others on the way. In that context, machine learning is a very generic terminology, right? How does a machine learn to become smarter and intelligent, right? Today, as a human brain, we understand what it means when you ask a question. I know you are here sitting here asking me a question for which I need to respond, and there are 100 people sitting in front of me who are going to be consumer of that information. So that is like by design. I don't need to think. It's all part of my DNA. It is part of what I've learned, and my brain is kind of evolved to that. Machine learning is the same thing, where think of machine as starting off as a kid. There is no data. There is nothing that it has in terms of database or animation to kind of make sense of the logic. So the machine over a period of time, once you give it enough data, enough things to kind of breed over, it makes certain logic calculations and becomes smarter and smarter, right? So machine learning is just that. Machine learns and becomes smarter with time and data that is fed to it, right? Let's just keep it to that. In terms of artificial intelligence, I mean AI and neural, among other things, think of them as algorithms, right? For lack of better words, think of it as algorithms or logic which people have put in place. Think of it as a template of rules and regulations based on which is something that you would apply and get to a hypothesis or a conclusion, the result, right? So think of all this as various things. Neural network is something which few scientists in the valley came together and they said, how can I simulate the human mind? How can I look at how the whole system works in a human being, and can I mimic that as close as possible? And that's what the terminology neural networks came into play. Right? Artificial intelligence is obviously, as it says, can I insert a different type of thinking in a machine, which is not very human-centric, which is contextual, logic-based, algorithm-based. Right? So in simple, I'll just keep it in a simple way so that you kind of don't get too much bogged down. Just think of it as a template, as a rule engine, which can be applied, an algorithm of kind, to get some synthesis or answers on your data set. Just keep it at that.
Coming to the same question.
I just want to, okay, go ahead.
So, as we explained that in artificial intelligence, it is the algorithms and logic which makes a machine intelligent by grasping the data which the machine gets over with a period of time. And on machine learning, you told me that machine gets the data over a period of time, and with it gets intelligent. Okay, so when there is a machine, it is also comprising some kind of algorithms or logic within it. After that, it is able to compute it. Because machine is, until it is not, it can only decide if there is an algorithm or a logic written in it, then only it can decide what step is to be taken. So after listening to him, I'm still confused because both of the things work on the algorithm basis kind of.
I'll try to further confuse you. Yeah. So let me, I thought we were coming to a B school. It looks like an IIT campus that we are sitting in. Very nice. Okay. Historically, have you heard about Alan Turing?
Yes.
Okay.
World War II.
Alright. See, what is the fundamental difference between a human brain and a CPU? A CPU is programmatically a Boolean machine which can only do 0 and a 1. I'm not talking about quantum computing. Whereas a human brain has a mid state called maybe. Yes, no, and maybe. That's the fundamental difference between human intelligence and artificial intelligence still, right? That's the first. Second thing is, human brain is wired in such a way that you can instantly do a maybe because patterns automatically get calculated. Whereas machine would take time to reach a stage where it can do a maybe. That is why it needs learning, and that is machine learning. And Uber can prompt probably after 10 rides of you that you would like to go in a Uber share from Masab Tank to Amirpet, whereas you would like to take an Uber SUV if you have 5 passengers of your family who are traveling more than 10 kilometers. That is machine learning. So machine learning happens after a sequence of programmatic instructions that machine starts to, but human brain still can, last moment can change the decision and book an Ola. And Uber by itself cannot do that. It would never prompt you that, now it's raining, probably you take Ola than Uber. It would never do that. So machine learning is that, right? Then I think we touched a little bit about neural networks. So the neural networks is fundamentally a science which binds this. A lot of pattern recognition happens intrinsically in a neural network, which gets programmed on a period of time, which will allow to make systematic decisions at regular interventions which were not foreseen. That's what, these are the 3 things. And the compilers have been, over the period of time, becoming intelligent. So machine learning is a practical reality today. We are talking about GPUs. So machine learning is a practical thing because it requires a lot of data to be processed at any instant of time for it to make one single decision. So AI comes first, machine learning comes next. That's probably the way I would put it. It makes sense.
I'll just add another simple example. I mean, great point. I think we should kind of use that. One simple way to look at it is like, let's take the same example, the Uber ride from Masab Tank to where we went. So the machines are like this, right? You give a certain set of inputs, all things being the same, the output is going to be the same, right? The machines will always react in a very predictable fashion. As against to human, you give the same person the same set of options that you want to go from Masab Tank to Amirpet, the answer may not be the same. It is going to be different because there is so much variability that comes in, and not even to kind of touch upon the whole emotional sequencing that goes behind. There's a lot of unpredictable things, so you can't program all those variabilities into play, right? That's another way to kind of think about it, that constant set of inputs, all things being the same, a machine will always give you predictable results for most part. Humans, it's not going to be the same.
Just to add, the difference between the algorithm that you are saying versus the difference to the machine learning algorithms and AI ones is they were all hard-coded, like binary zeros and ones. These days, algorithms have patterns, and each pattern can have like 2 million, 3 million probabilities. So the algorithms are also much smarter.
Simple example that I said somewhere is 24 even or odd. Human brain is faster than computer to evaluate two, and it remains as 0, it is even, otherwise odd. So it has to go through some algorithm, as you rightly said. And human brain can do multitasking. I think such goes on fast now.
But as budding marketeers and analytics professionals, the advantage that all of us have is the immense processing power today's machines have gotten, and at a rate, when I say rate, it's the price, which was phenomenally inconceivable even 5-6 years back. So that is what makes machine learning real practical. As a concept, it was there for, how many of you know Deep Blue, the machine defeated Kasparov? Whereas today there is a thing called Mind, the one that there is a Chinese game which is
AlphaGo.
right. So all of those are reflections of the advancements in the processing power that machines have today, which is making them a reality. That's the silver line out of it. I saw someone raising hands there. Go ahead, yeah.
So in regards to marketing 20 years back and marketing today, how is analytics made difference?
Good question.
I'm not going to answer your question, but I'm going to give an example that hopefully answers to that. So there was a pretty interesting case that happened in US. I don't know how much of y'all got to it. This is with a father who was not very happy with Target. So he goes to Target and he complains to the manager that I'm not happy with you guys, what you guys are doing. And Target was like very astonished as to what happened. So supposedly what happened is Target was sending advertisements to his 17-year-old daughter about dresses to buy when you are pregnant, ramps and kid-related stuff. And the father was like, what the hell? I mean, why would you send my 17-year-old teen daughter all these things, right? And he was like, remove her, your kind of, data is all getting messed up and I don't know where you got her. So he was very profusely apologetic, obviously, and then he said, let me take her off the list and you should be fine. Very sorry about that. Sometimes things happen because it is all data and machines and whatever, right? So he said, fine, so over. And then obviously, because of the customer-centric approach the target has, after a week or so, the manager calls the father again just to